but just having those slight kind of epiphany moments where you take a step back and you just, rather than being consumed with the activity, look at it from an outside point of view. Because when you are very immersed in something, you just see it for what it is, and you don't see it from that outside perspective.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the Korekara podcast. Today we're talking to Molly, a Japanese learner who you may know on YouTube as Mobile Molly. Is also a power user on the Korekara Discord, where we hope to see you soon too. But in this episode, we talk about Molly's journey with Japanese, including some of his highs and lows regarding motivation, some tips he's found helpful with his learning, and how he's immersing currently. We also talk about his hobby of making AMVs, which actually translated into a job for him, as well as his time in Japan. So if you guys want to support the podcast, as always, you can check out our Patreon, where we have extra bonus clips. Also, for this podcast, I would like to apologize, as we did have some audio issues, but we think there's a lot of relatable content you guys would love to hear, and we had a super fun time talking to Molly, so we hope you guys enjoy.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the Korekara podcast. My name's Eric and I'm joined by my co-host Raza. We talk to people of all types of backgrounds about their lives in Japan, studying Japanese, or even tips and tricks on how to learn the language. This week we're joined by a very special guest, Molly.
Yeah, so Molly has been learning Japanese for over 5 years, and we first found out about Molly through our Discord, where we met him through one of our hangouts on our voice channel. So he makes videos on his Japanese journey on his YouTube, Mobile Molly, and he also makes AMVs on a separate YouTube channel. So today we wanted to get a closer look into his journey with Japan, but before that, Molly, can you give us a quick background of who you are and where you're at today?
So my name's Maddie. I'm a Japanese learner. I've been learning Japanese for around 6 years, around 3 of them with the immersion method. I went from the traditional studying method into the immersion method, and I am currently at a stage where I'm just enjoying video games, visual novels, light novels, just Japanese things made for Japanese people, essentially. I still got a way to go, but I'm enjoying the ride.
We all love to enjoy the ride here. And why don't we talk about the start of the ride here? Because everyone always has a nice start to getting into Japan and Japanese.
Japanese, yeah.
Yeah, right? So,
yeah.
Molly, I guess, where did you start off in this whole big journey?
So I started off a very, very long time ago. Well, I was always into cartoons, of course, watching it on TV with my brothers and sisters. And then as time went on, I discovered that this was actually anime, watch Dragon Ball Z and all this sort of stuff. And the first anime I kind of got into was after playing Tales of Symphonia with my sister. And I watched the Tales of Symphonia anime after that. And then I watched Fullmetal Alchemist and etc. So then I always had an interest in Japanese animation, and that's kind of what kind of pushed my interest into learning about like video editing, as I made AMVs back in the day, as I pushed that hobby eventually into the job what I'm doing now. So around university time, a lot of the people around me, they were also studying Japanese, and I was just like, oh my god, that's so cool. I've watched anime for years, and these guys are speaking the language what they speak in the anime. I'm like, Japanese has always sounded cool. I'd like to get into that as well. So I started doing some Japanese here and there, had some friends, and they kind of helped me out like a tiny bit, but it wasn't enough. So after that, I was thinking, okay, the only way to get good is either by studying in university, doing a textbook, or going to a class. So after I graduated, got my first job, I started a class, and I did that for around 3 years. It took like 2-3 years just to cover like 2 books of Minamori Hongo, right? So it wasn't the best. And then around 2008, I discovered immersion learning through Matt vs. Japan. And then 2008, did I say 2008 or 2018? Sorry. I discovered.
Yeah, should be 2018, right? 2008, Matt's probably like 13 years old or something.
Been learning Japanese longer than every guest we've had on the show so far.
I was a young boy. Yeah, so around 2018, I discovered Matt vs. Japan. That was around when he was doing, the old school AJAT days, and oh my God, watch these videos. I didn't know if this guy was kind of telling the truth. I was really skeptical. I watched lots of videos with him, with interviewing other people, talking to George Tromby back then. That was interesting, the discussions and whatnot. And it was really in its infancy, AJAP and everything. But watch these videos enough kind of just got me into, okay, surely I have to start this RTK, get into sentence mining, and this should be, a surefire way of getting better. So as I was doing that, I was also going to my class and also studying for my JLPT M4 at the time. And then I know everybody's against JLPT, but that was kind of my goal, right, at that time, because previously I really liked structure. And if you have things like structure, it kind of gives you that kind of immediate kind of reward and something to work towards. So that was all out of the way. I didn't have enough money to continue the classes. So the only option was to start learning by myself. And that was really rocky because getting the motivation to do hard things is actually a very hard task to do. And people don't really talk about this often, right? You don't just wake up and you're like, I want to do 8 hours of Japanese every single day. And then, my objective is so kind of, like solid that it's never going to break. There are I don't know, there's a lot of ups and downs. So for the whole of 2019 after that, it was kind of up and down. I kept to my sentence mining. As I didn't really like Anki, but I did it anyway. And then I did a few manga, a few series here and there, and Terrace House that year as well, where I'd watch kind of one scene of Terrace House with subtitles, and then what English subtitles should I say, and then one scene with Japanese subtitles, and I'll do that for a lot of the seasons. Then I just went straight raw with just Japanese subtitles, and that helped a lot. Whilst also, making friends along the way, like Japanese friends, and trying to output, embarrassingly. It was very embarrassing. Then, I just went to a massive kind of low period, end of, was it 2019 or 2020? Yeah, 2019, massive low period. And then, it was one of those periods where I had zero motivation for anything. So going from zero and then trying to go, all the way to hero, right?
Yeah, all the way to hero. Yeah, for real.
It's really difficult. And how people get that kind of motivation, it depends. But how I started it is I've been behind with video games for a very long time. So I started playing Pokemon short Sword and Shield at the time, right? I picked Shield because I'm a man of culture. But
I may or may not have picked Sword, but we don't need to talk about that.
May not. I picked Pokemon, right? And then I played it for 30 minutes at first, then it went to 1 hour, then it went to 4 hours a day, and then before I knew it, within a month or two, I completed the game, finished my Pokédex. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to catch up with everything I'm behind with. So I completed 2 massive RPGs, and I'm like, you know what, with these 200-hour RPGs, I can transfer this dedication into Japanese. So then I started slowly with a game like Final Fantasy 3 in Japanese. Not so much text, but everything, the menus are in hiragana, and I've played it before. And I did that with 2 other games, Zelda Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. And then I made cards for those as well, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. And then after that, eventually I played games like Dragon Quest and Persona 5 recently. And in that mix, I've been doing visual novels, manga, light novels, and all that sort of stuff. But the way I'd like to study is that, you have a main kind of immersion source, right? So let's just say it is a video game. So a video game is your main one, right? And you'd like to dedicate at least 1 to possible 6 hours of your day. Maybe even you could say 10 minutes. So let's say 10 minutes to 1 to 6 hours of your day in that main source. And then around that, you'll do your Anki. And then you would do your anime or whatever you're using to, get your active immersion with listening. And then once you finish this main source of the video game, right, you would switch this eventually to So for me personally, I'll switch it to a visual novel. Then once I finish the visual novel, I'll switch to a light novel. Then once I finish the light novel, then I'll switch to a bunch of manga. Then once I finish the like a bunch of manga, then I'll go back to the video game. So we always got this constant source of like main immersion, which is switching, and it has different degrees of, levels of difficulty. So you're always challenging yourself, but you're also having fun at the same time, and it gives you a chance to enjoy the things you'd usually enjoy. So
were you doing something like that, like when you were still taking classes, or like how much were you improving when you were like still taking those classes?
When I was taking the classes, I couldn't really feel the improvement because there was so much pressure. When you're in a Japanese class and you have that really kibishi sensei, right?
Yeah.
And, you're there and then she asks you a question and it's your time to speak. You just feel that kind of, nervousness. And then you find it really difficult to kind of reply. It was kind of like that. And because of the homework they gave, it felt like a lot going on at the same time. So I didn't really improve so much because I wasn't really getting the immersion in to solidify everything taught in class. Because the main complaint she had was like, hey, you keep thinking like in a very logical manner with everything that you're learning. Just try your best to be more, free-flowing. And I couldn't be free-flowing because I didn't immerse. I had the whole mindset of, once I finish these textbooks, then I'll be ready to, do the immersion afterwards, right? And it wasn't really like that. So then, obviously, after when I started immersing, at first, it was painful. It was so painful. You don't understand anything. It feels like time is going like super, super slow. But
how did the JLPT go? Because you said you were going to take the N4, right?
Yeah. I passed that.
Hey.
So that's good. So I passed. N4, GG. But so with immersion, I do feel the improvement. It's a lot more of immediate effect, right? Because you're effectively studying for the things you'd want to do, and it's great, especially using Anki and things like Morphman.
I see. So we kind of talked about how like a little preview to how kind of motivation played into your Japanese journey so far, and kind of at this point where you're in it with the classes and it's a lot more stricter and it's very, I guess, built up to, okay, you have to do this, you have to do that, or a lot less freedom involved. But now you're playing a lot of games and watching a lot more anime and reading visual novels, manga, your whole kind of system about it. Would you say that having something enjoyable really helps your motivation and helps you kind of learn better, at least for you personally?
For me personally, I'll definitely say yes, because when you do things at your own rate, there's less expectation for you to be at a certain level, right? Like generally, I'm pretty much a very slow learner. I learn very slow. It takes me a while to get things. I get things mixed up and everything. So being in a classroom environment, there is that, as long as, the pressure and, homework, what you don't want to do, the written exercises. Doing it yourself, it does seem more fun because, you can suck for the whole game, barely understand anything, but still get something out of it, right?
Right.
As it's enjoyable.
I see. And I guess, so, I mean, coming from, I guess, so when you did the N4, that was purely through classroom learning, right?
Classroom learning, and I bought like 5 books. There's, JLPT drill books and Shinkansen Master and Somatome and a bunch of other ones.
Right. How did those help you kind of going into it?
They help me kind of get prepared for the exam format, the types of questions they will ask, and just generally be more comfortable with what's gonna come up.
Did you take any other levels, especially now that you've been doing immersion for longer than classes?
So I wouldn't even say I've done it longer. It's kind of like equal. I'd still say I've done more classes than I've done immersion. Like when I think immersion only really started when I played Final Fantasy 3, because that's when things started to go up. So that was only like 2020, right? Before that, it was just Centers Money. But yeah, any other JLPT levels, Not yet. I'm thinking of doing one soon, but I'm not going to be like everybody else and go for the N1. I'll probably just go for N2, just to not, punch above my weight too much.
I see. So I mean, I guess like towards the whole motivation aspect too. So you said you kind of reached like a lot of highs and lows, but yeah. I guess before we kind of get into this, I also do want to get into a little bit of your history before kind of building up your Japanese. I guess not even just learning about Japan. And you mentioned AMVs, and I'm sure a lot of us have seen those going through YouTube back in the day, especially the classics. You'll see the anime, you'll see the music. It's all going down. So I guess how did you get into those? How did you kind of start making them? Was it hard? Was it fun? Yeah.
You're asking all the right questions. Like AMVs is definitely one of my passions. Like how I found out about it is like I remember I was just in school. I must have been in secondary school, like year 7, year 8. I remember Kingdom Hearts 2 came on, right? And then it wasn't Sanctuary, but the other opening song which played, right? That must have been in the advert. Yeah. I was like, this is awesome. I want to know more about this. So I went on to YouTube at the time, and it wasn't so much content surrounding video games. It's mostly just re-uploaded stuff and whatever. And then I found AMVs, and I'm like, whoa, this is pretty cool. Maybe I'll be able to make something similar like this. So I got together Windows Movie Maker, a bunch of clips from whatever KH website I downloaded it from, and then I made something terrible, but it was still very enjoyable. So since then I've got involved in a little community, a few people, and then eventually I got introduced to more and more people, had someone kind of, mentoring me through that community, kind of, basically, trash talk my videos. That trolls right on the internet? Think about a troll trolling you on your AMVs. I got that bad. And then within a year or two, like I got to a decent level of just making the AMVs. The thing about AMVs is that they're not as, simple and kind of slapstick as what people think they are, right? They require a lot of effort, and just a lot of thought behind it, right? Because it's like story type AMVs. There's many different elements to think about, so like impact, sync, flow, and stuff like that. And it just gets really deep, And then nowadays, people have been using a lot of visual effects and motion graphics in their AMVs as well. So it's turning into this massive kind of thing what nobody knows about because it's really under the ground now.
Wow. So I guess it's like really evolved. I guess I haven't been involved as much. So I remember back in the day, you'd see it like flood my YouTube feed. I'm like, oh wow, like this is pretty crazy. But you brought up a lot of good aspects about it because like the average person kind of just looking at it wouldn't really necessarily think about what goes into actually making an AMV. And like you mentioned, like the flow, the impact. I mean, like music choice too has a big part in it too, right? And yeah, it's really like you're constructing your own kind of movie with kind of clips that you're kind of taking apart from everywhere. And if it doesn't flow, then it's gonna be bad, And like actually like putting that all together, that you have to have a lot of hard work, like you mentioned. But really hearing it from your end, I mean, oh man, do you have like a specific one that you like really enjoyed making?
Most of my AMVs I really enjoy making, but I guess I can link one or two, below.
Yeah. Oh, true.
How long would it take you, like, typically to make one of them?
That's a good question. It can take between 4 to 10 hours to make one AMV, right? And that's typically around 2 minutes, just for 2. It's like what Raza was saying. It's like you're literally taking something which is already created, snapping little bits out of it, and then making a new kind of sequence from that. And it can be tough, especially if you're like me and you like syncing very fast to fast-paced songs.
Wow! Oh my god! I just thought about that just now. Fast-paced. I was thinking about the slow ones. Like that seems like it could go a lot better. But when you're fast, like a lot of action, right? A lot of stuff's going on, a lot of emotion. Oh my god!
So much, dude. It's crazy, man. It really is.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure you don't use Movie Maker now, but how?
Well, I swear that's distinct.
Yeah, no, I remember when it was a thing, and now I don't remember the last time I've seen it or used it. It's kind of weird actually, but I mean, how do you like? Do you still make AMVs today? And how did that help you, like your skills in terms of, you mentioned how it helped you like professionally, but how is it now?
So how did it help me improve my skills? With AMVs, you get a lot of practice, a lot of repetition, and it builds that kind of instinct of where to cut, right? Because you can watch a lot of tutorials about like how to edit, how to get a feeling, how to flow and everything like that. But in the end of the day, you kind of have to develop this weird instinct, because each song, each video won't kind of be the same way, right? So yeah, that is really difficult, and AMVs definitely taught me how to rhythmically put things together. So that's cool. And how it helped with the career stuff. So every now and then I'd make like a flashy kind of video, so a little bit of After Effects, right? Some some cool motion graphics and here and there. And I just took all of those pieces together, put it into a short kind of show reel, and then sent it to my first kind of internship, right? After shortly after I graduated, after a break after I graduated even. And then they gave me a chance. Two companies gave me a chance, actually. One was a kids entertainment company, and another one was a viral video company, which has like 25 million like followers on their social media. Whoa. So I went to the unpaid internship first with this viral company. I won't name them because obviously. And then after being there for a week, I was like, yo, they want me to make like, at that time I think they wanted me to make 6 videos a day, right? It was like article video at the time, right? And they wanted us to source all the material ourselves, given like a very brief. And it was going to be unpaid. They only pay, for food and travel expenses. So, this other company comes out of nowhere. I say I'm sick, in the first week, go to that interview, cop it. And, I just had a chance to do a bit of everything. So a bit of YouTube kind of management, a little bit of motion graphics, a little bit of actual editing, and a little bit of a music video part of it as well. So that was pretty cool, making some music videos.
Wow, kind of going along the lines of AMV, just in a different space, right?
In a different space, definitely. But there are harmful things about AMVs as well, right? Yeah. If people make those kind of repetitive videos with a lot of flashes and a lot of needless effects and stuff, right? With, actual real world videos, there's a time and a place for that. So if they didn't build up their raw skills to just put clip after clip together, then they'll have difficulties getting into a space where, they kind of require that.
You don't want to cause anyone to have any seizures, right?
Of course. Imagine that.
Oh man, yeah, that would not be it. That would be very far from it. Yeah. So, are you making AMVs still today?
Still to this day. I started 2018. No, 2008. I messed
2008. This one's 2008.
So I started in 2008 and all the way till now. And watching AMVs, making AMVs, it also got me into watching more and more anime, because obviously you need anime to make these AMVs. Right. So yeah, it kind of brought up the passion of loving anime. So it's just everything 2 in 1 kind of thing.
Wow. So I guess like in a way it kind of started like your immersion too, right? It kind of gave you all the material you needed, and you kind of went from there too, right?
Kind of just went from there, because when I graduated, I didn't do like the same degree as video editing, right? I did like freaking computer science. So coming out of computer science degree, I had to like try and grind and get all my skills with video editing, but at the same time I also had Japanese there as well, so like we were all mixed matching and doing both for a while.
I see. I mean, that sounds really tough though. Like kind of you have you have one degree, and then you're like, you know what? Screw it. I want to follow like my true passion, right? And
Passion, yeah.
yeah. Oh man.
I mean, the thing about Japanese is that you could do stuff in Japanese, right? Like you could do computer science in Japanese, theoretically.
Theoretically, that's also, something that, is on my mind possibly in the future, if we want to come back to it. That's the thing, because when you dump something like computer science, everybody looks at you in some way, right? Because everybody in their freaking grandma would want to, have a computer science degree, seeing how, high demand it is nowadays for a lot of jobs. So yeah, I mean, money-wise, there is money and there is jobs in that. But after going through my first job and having not so much of a great experience there, I decided to do something else. Because anybody doing a degree, right? Doing a degree doesn't mean that you can do the skill associated with it. If you do computer science, it doesn't automatically mean you can program. If you do a film degree, it doesn't mean that you're good at making films, right? It's all about what you do outside of class. And I didn't have that dedication to, the thing, like being able to self-learn in such a way. Back then, like I was still kind of a naive kind of kid that's trying to work things out and just do other things and understand, life and myself.
Right. And I mean, going through the whole idea of motivation and dedication, one thing you did have a lot of dedication through is Japanese, though. And of course, the waking up at 8 hours, I mean, very, very daunting for just like right off the bat, like someone new coming in. If that's what you told, like if you were to learn Japanese, telling someone new, like, oh, you have to do this 8 hours a day every day. Very, very tall task, especially when you have so much on the table already, right? But you mentioned, okay, Matt First Japan introduced me to immersion, but you said you actually got into immersion once you started learning games. So I guess prior to that, with the sentence mining, how was that going for you? And was it bringing you to a high or maybe a low?
So previously with Anki, right, I had that notion of, okay, I'm gonna, grab this pre-made deck. It would have like a bunch of words, and then I'm just gonna try and memorize these words on Anki.
Right.
So that's where I was at. And it didn't really go well. I couldn't really make a habit of doing Anki as it was painful. I used all of the different buttons, which was on vanilla Anki, right? So it was just everything. And then it came to the point where I just didn't care about the cards, and I kept on pressing good on the cards, even though, I was forgetting them, right? So being introduced into Matt vs. Japan definitely gave me a more grounded kind of understanding of what Anki is, what it can do, when to press good, when to press again, and all of that sort of basic stuff. Though, because I was very doubtful of Matt and, immersion learning, it was crazy because I remember just one day I just had all these doubts in my head. I was thinking about my career. I was thinking about Japanese and how I still want it, but I don't want to do it as intensely. And then all of a sudden, there was this dude standing, right, on the train platform. He gets in the train on the same carriage I usually get on. I get on the same carriage all the time.
Right.
And then I see him repping Anki cuts. I wish I was joking, right? I see him repping Anki cards, and I'm like, hey, that's Japanese, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm learning Japanese too. And I was like, recently I just discovered this guy called Matt vs. Japan. He recommended me to do like RTK. I'm not too sure if I should jump into that or not. And then he was just like, yeah, RTK is good, you should get it. So after that event, right, it was a brief talk, he went away and I thought I was never going to see him again. I bought RTK and I started doing that. I started doing centers mining like three 5 cards a day, right? 3 cards a day, then slowly to 5, and slowly to 7. And that was the only consistent thing I had at that point, right? But as I kept going on the train, I kept seeing this guy. And anytime I had doubts, like remember when Matt was kind of introducing Loki, Anki, and then it was this long, complicated process. You had to read like, page upon page to understand the Anki algorithm and all sorts. He kind of just like sat me down and he's just like, yeah, it's all right, and just like dispelled any doubts I had. And then I met him one other time, and then, we're talking about how harsh old Matt was, and he was just like, you know what? just take everything he says with a grain of salt and try and look at, the bigger picture of what he's saying. So after that time, I got his contact details. So I got his Instagram, and then I never saw him on the platform again.
Wow. I guess if you ever need a guardian angel for Japanese, just head on over to the train and you'll find someone.
Don't feel afraid to talk to that random dude studying Japanese.
You see that Ankiori, you know what to do.
He just knows what to do. And then it was mad because I remember one time I met up with him, I think it's the second time, he was just sitting down, just in a place. It was like the perfect moment when I just had the most doubts going on in my mind. And he was just reading The Alchemist in Japanese. And I'm like, what a guy.
Wow. So have you been in contact with them still?
Here and there, he kind of comments on my Instagram stories and etc. But yeah, I don't know. One of these days, I might have to record a video of him. Like, the Asiat I met on the train.
The guy who quelled all your doubts.
Yeah, it's awesome because I don't know. I don't know how people respond to people having doubts in the community, right? Because doubts is definitely kind of a natural thing. You're gonna have doubts. You're gonna have up and downs. You're gonna have times where you're not gonna believe in yourself. But I feel like if you keep pushing, you're gonna meet people who are just gonna naturally bring you up, whether they know it or not. They will. You will meet the trolls and just say, "Hey, look, if you're not doing the work and you're complaining about it online, then of course you're not gonna go anywhere. But you're gonna, meet the real people who are gonna really question you. Why are you doing this? Can you see yourself doing this in the future, right? Or do you just like, hearing? No, you just like the thought of getting good at Japanese, but you don't like the process, or you're not willing to go through the process of learning Japanese, because that is two separate things. Because so many people say things, I want to edit, I want to do cryptocurrency, I want to learn Japanese, I want to be rich, etc. Right? But are they really willing to go through that grinding process in order to get to that stage, right? Because that process is a very lonely word, and not so many people talk about this kind of like loneliness and to this dedication, and some people do, and they really guide you through it, man. So I definitely thank a lot of individuals because of that.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, because when you do go on YouTube and you go and search like how to learn Japanese, it's a very, I guess, sexy process in a way, that's what people kind of make it out to be, like, oh, just do this and that, and you're like, you're set. And at the end of the day, it really isn't that simple. There's so much that goes into not only learning Japanese, but any skill, like you mentioned, and really having to go through all those like troughs and kind of lows and downs to kind of, like you said, a lonely road to get there really is what gets you up on top at the end of it. And it's something that we've like talked about with other guests on our podcast as of late as well. But for you personally, like, how did you kind of get through these moments? Like you mentioned you had people kind of helping you along the way, but did you have anything else that kind of helped you go through this, get you like strengthen your mind a lot more and kind of keep on going and throughout this process? I
guess people was a good part of it, right? Mm-hmm. But in general, like, I'm going to go slightly off topic, but I'm going to say this anyway. Like, language learning is kind of like a tool to understand yourself and the world better, right? So it's very much to do with self-development. So a lot of the concepts you can take from self-development, you can apply it to language learning. So luckily at that time, I recently started doing things like meditation. So nothing like, like self-guided meditation. Like I just went on YouTube, found some guided meditation and started doing that. That was really cool to kind of just calm myself. But what other things kind of got me back into it? I guess just the little things, like, I don't know, watching an update video from someone, seeing, them get to a certain stage, revisiting old material. That's a really good one, right? Material which you found really difficult at the start, but you go back to it and you're like, oh, damn, look how much more I understand now. What else? Listening to shows, right? like just everything which is immersion, but just having those slight kind of epiphany moments where you take a step back and you just, rather than being consumed with the activity, look at it from an outside point of view. Because when you are very immersed in something, you just see it for what it is, and you don't see it from that outside perspective. So getting that perspective as well definitely helped bring me in. And also, going from the different levels of immersion, right, with the main immersions, right, that definitely helps. Like, reading some manga is obviously more relaxing compared to reading a light novel, because like light novels are horrible for most people, because you have
like a wall of text.
Exactly. It's just the wall of text. It's like, hey, get good. Can you read this? If you can't, get good.
It's like a gatekeeper in a way.
Gatekeeper. It's legit a gatekeeper. I feel sorry to all the people who actually don't like light novels or manga or anything like that.
I mean, you have tackled them, and I mean, you have gone on now to playing a lot of games, which is definitely enjoyable. But again, when it's in full Japanese and kind of the whole comprehension becomes a whole different aspect, because again, so much is going on, right?
Like when you play a game, I don't know, it's like what everybody says. Being comfortable with ambiguity is the most important part, right?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a lot of things where you're going to understand, a lot of things you're not going to understand. But the most important thing when playing a game is understanding enough for you to go from A to B. And everything else, you'll basically you'll get enough repetition of that, and it'll make sense eventually.
Right. What was it like finally being able to use Japanese, like speaking wise? Because you also spent some time in Japan, right?
So when I say sometime Japan, I've been to Japan twice, once in 2016 and once in 2018. And oh my God, speaking Japanese, I don't know. Maybe for those guys who have a lot of confidence, they really like talking to people, they don't mind making mistakes, right? They kind of just go through all of the flops, right? But for me personally, opening my mouth is so nerve-wracking in Japanese. And when I went the first time in 2016 even, right? Oh my God, I remember going to like a combini, and literally I get one of those freaking spaghetti or whatever, right? Like combini food, go to the counter, and then they're just there. And the counter guy just says, "Tatakai desu ka?" And I'll just be like, "Yes." I was like, "Yes." And he's just like, "Huh? Yes. Huh? Yes." I was like, "Oh, hi." So during both of those trips, I actually just left it to the person who was best at Japanese to communicate and everything, because I was so kind of worried of, me not being audible, me saying the wrong thing, or them coming at me with a wave of Japanese. So I was able to speak a little bit more in my 2018 trip. But there was one time on the 2016 trip, which was interesting. Imagine being like N5 Japanese. You're going from Nakano to, I think it was Shinjuku, right? Uh-huh. And then you're by yourself because you just finished meeting up with one of your friends, and you're going back to your main friends you went on the trip with, right? To meet up with them. And then your phone dies. Your phone dies. And you have no charger. So what you gonna do? You gotta speak Japanese, right?
You gotta do it.
So like I was going places, I was just there like, kore, charge. I was going places. I went to a freaking Starbucks, I went to Gap, I was asking people on road. Bro, I just saw some foreigners and they're just like, go to that place. And then I went there and I said the same thing, kore, charge, dekimasu ka? And then legit, like, luckily, like, guy showed me a portable charger, and I was like, dekiru. And then he was just there like, just getting angry, right? And then I just bought it and I plugged it in and charged, and I was like, thank God. Oh. The speaking experiences out of that is a very interesting question. A lot of people say don't speak when learning, foreign language, especially with immersion learning, right? Immersion learning. But I had to speak, right? Because I was with my class from the beginning for the first 3 years. So I spoke within that setting. But in my mind, I wanted to sound exactly like Japanese people for some reason. I don't know why. I just had that feeling, right? And then I felt I only want to have friends when I'm better at Japanese. So the first 2 years, I only texted Japanese people here and there. And then, so that's 2015 to 2018, 3 years even. First 3 years, I just texted people, didn't really call people so often. In 2018, it was my goal to kind of connect with people, have some language exchange partners and go from there. So that's when I got some italki teachers, 2 italki teachers. I started speaking to them both weekly. What else did I do? I tried to find language exchange people. I got into a group. And then they were really nice at the time. I'm not part of the group anymore, but it happens. It happens. And I did the italki lessons for a little bit. And I think around 2019, I met this really cool guy, a taku dude. Speak to him every week, like 15 minutes Japanese, 15 minutes English. And he went, and at that point, I was still not good at Japanese, right? Even though I had all that speaking practice and learning and whatnot. So I was literally, I won't say I was at the Kolewa Pendiska, but very basic sentences, right? Right? So yeah, I guess from then on, like he just had a lot of patience for some reason. And we've been speaking for like 2 years since then, like every single week. Met up with him in Japan. We went to Akiba for the whole day, went to Maid Cafe together, it was all good. But generally, speaking is just one of those frustrations I've had all along the journey, because no matter how much I read, no matter how much I listen, right? If you've become used to speaking in a certain type of way, right? If you're always like nani 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 wa nani nani and this nani nani wa nani nani doing this blah 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 blah, right? If you're always like that, right, you're gonna continue speaking like that. So trying to break out that habit and feed your immersion back in is really difficult, and having that true kind of belief in the subconscious probably takes a very long time to build. And I'm sure you guys could either relay or kind of clear up that kind of thing, because it's what a lot of people want to do when they learn language. They want to be able to speak, be able to communicate, to be able to make friends and all of that sort of stuff. But it's difficult. It's really difficult. One thing I will say is that some people have said my accent is okay, right? But I don't know, even then, the self-doubt kicks in and I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not, man. You're just being nice. Japanese people are nice. You say Joseph to it.
Nothing is more classic than a Nihongo Joseph.
It's dead, man. Oh my god, it's dead. But yeah, so on that fence, speaking is still a work in progress. Like, it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. Like, I feel like reading is something you can definitely brute force. Like, if you just Anki and memorize new words, you'll be able to read. But then with speaking, it's like an unconscious process. Because when you're speaking, it's like the words just come to you, and if they don't come to you, then you can't speak. So you have to like get to a point where they just like come to you.
They just come to you. Maybe that is the problem, just, the comprehension in general. But seeing that is a subconscious process, like, I believe it, but I don't believe it, because, like, so my parents, right, they're Ugandan, right? Mm-hmm. And for my whole life, they've been speaking to me in this language called Lusaka. And then I can understand it when they speak it to me, but I can't speak a single word. So a part of me is slightly skeptical of the whole, being able to input a lot and then magically being able to output. But I don't know. I don't know. How did it happen for you guys? I mean, the interview being reversed.
I feel like that's really true, because like in Taiwan they speak like Taiwanese and Chinese, like Mandarin. And Taiwanese is mostly spoken by like the older generation. So a lot of people, like younger people, they can understand perfectly like Taiwanese, but they're really bad at speaking it, or they can't speak it at all. So I feel like with that input hypothesis, there's definitely like some part that's like not complete.
Yeah, the missing piece. But what is different? Is it because we have a range of inputs which kind of, bolster up our comprehension, and that's the reason why you're able to, create speaking ability from just input?
I think it's like if you never have that experience of like keep trying to speak, then your brain it thinks it's not something it has to do. So then you never develop that skill. But I feel like if you went and tried and struggled, then it starts to know that it's something it has to do. And then it becomes like more effortless, I feel like.
Yeah, it creates all the right paths to speaking of your brain, if that's a thing, like, pseudoscience.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I do find funny, though, going back to your little experience finding a charger, is I'm glad the guy didn't scam you after all of that.
It's like an empty bank.
Empty bank.
I think it was like from a Yoda Bashi camera, or whatever the hell it's called. Did I butcher the name?
I think it is called Yodobashi camera.
Yeah.
There's like a song like whenever I go in, it's like I'm not gonna sing it. But
yeah, they're like
yeah.
I did a British accent, man. Maybe you can do a jingle.
Yeah. Do the exchange.
Maybe we'll save it for another episode. Maybe we'll save it for
another episode.
We'll say that every single episode from now on. Anyways. Oh man. But I mean, you did mention you talked to have you had made that otaku friend over ice hockey, and how prior to that you said you made a lot of Japanese friends that helped you along the way. So would you say the majority of your friends came from ice hockey, or did you maybe make friends when you did go to Japan itself?
So it wasn't italki. I met the friends through Hello Talk, right?
Hello Talk, yeah.
Yes, Hello Talk. And so did those friends help me along the way? I would say this. In one of the groups of friends I was in, they despised anime. They thought it was for a particular kind of person, and they'll say comments like, if you watch anime, or people who like anime, they're never going to get to top levels of learning Japanese, right? Uh-huh. They would think of weeds like that. Mm-hmm. And that kind of sucks, right? Just being in that kind of environment, it makes you feel like your hobbies or what you do is just not really so valid. So I guess as time went on, finding people who are more similar, it definitely helped along the way, especially in terms of just confidence and feeling comfortable. Because I guess like with anybody, if you're in a comfortable environment, you can operate better compared to being in an uncomfortable environment.
Right.
But at the same time, obviously, you have to step out of this comfort zone in order to make greater gains. So it's kind of a balance of mixing the two.
I see.
How would you compare the experience of like talking to Japanese people on italki versus Hello Talk? Because italki is like they're getting paid, right? And then Hello Talk is more natural. Like,
I would say that the italki teachers what I had, even though they were getting paid, it still felt like they were making a connection with me, and we'll still be able to talk about a bunch of different things, and sometimes they'll open up about themselves. But like what you said, it is a paid interaction. So with some of them, once the money stops coming in, the interaction will be over. Or with another one of them, like luckily I asked them for like Line and Instagram, and they just gave it away, and they said if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So, but people on Hello Talk, there's no obligation to speak to you. So with a lot of people, a lot of experience you haven't had a talk, you'd speak once and then you'll never speak again. So in that sense, it's a lot more raw, and they don't mind about voicing the true concerns, etc. Also, people on Hello Talk, they can be selfish. If you pick up the phone and you drop the moshi moshi and then they're like, hi, you're like, bruh.
The tug of war between learning English or Japanese.
Yeah, it's just like you need to like shake hands, and they're not shaking hands, they're just slapping your hand away almost. It's so frustrating. Just that one interaction, right? You're just getting that high instead of a decent greeting. You need that hajime mashite there, like at least one or two.
Imagine you just hung up right after you heard that.
Yeah, it really does kind of, affect the kind of atmosphere you have in that call, and it might make you less likely to speak Japanese as you may not feel comfortable, or they might not be as patient to work through, the teething stages with you. But when I have worked through those kind of stages with people and they're not kind of, moshi mosh, hi, right? We have like a decent conversation, and you know, they also compliment our Japanese as well, which is nice, which definitely adds a boost to the language learning journey. And it's less of the Nihongo Jozu. It's more like, have you lived in Japan before? That's how you know it's changed, right? Have you lived in Japan? How long have you lived in Japan? Have you done like, a study abroad kind of thing? Right. Stuff like that. So it's nice.
That's what you love to see. And I guess kind of moving into a lesser known fact about yourself that a lot of people don't know is that you're actually, wait for it, you're 6'9" and an absolute giant in Japan when you were there.
That is me. That is me.
So how was it like? Because I mean, you've shown us pictures a lot offline about how crazy this like kind of discrepancy is, but how is it like actually kind of experiencing that? And like a lot, like I guess the average height in Japan is around 5'7", I think, right? Yeah. And I mean, it's really a lot of structures and like houses, buildings are kind of built for that height level. The trains are a big one. So how is it like kind of navigating through a country that's just, I guess, in a way, not really built for taller people,
That's a very good question, because I mean, the weird kind of thing I'd always notice is that with Japan, right, they got like certain laws which allow them to build, buildings on top of each other. So buildings are massively huge in Japan. In the UK, it's not like that at all. So the buildings are massive, but then the doorways are very, are not so massive. The seats in buses don't have enough legroom, right? Oh. And if you tower over people, then obviously people are going to look at you as well. In Tokyo, it wasn't that bad because you know how Tokyo people are, Kanto people are, they kind of just, they wouldn't want to make it obvious. So they'll walk past you and then they'll turn behind and be like, oh, seika takai, sugoi, yeah, like kind of thing. But like when you go to like, when you go slightly more west, so to Nagoya and freaking like Osaka, people, they be staring at you legit in your face, right? In your face. I remember I took one picture, it was like in front of like the Japan Winter Games, and then there was this one kid and just looking at me like, yeah. And then freaking Osaka, like, oh my god, like one person, I was just walking down like, I think it was in the middle. And then this one person's riding on the back of a bike, right? Like piggybacking on the bike, whatever the hell you call that. And they saw me, they smiled at me, they put their hand up, high five. And I was like, yeah, high five. And I was just there like, what the hell? Yeah, other than that, there's a lot of benefits in terms of height as well. Like on the train, the Shinkansen, it doesn't really affect me at all. When I get on the normal kind of trains in Tokyo, I have to bend my head to get into the door. I have to bend my head so I don't get the little, railing thing. But once I'm in, I can stand straight and then I'm fine. But in the UK, on the underground in London, I have to bend my head on every single train, man.
Oh, the whole time?
Oh, man.
The whole time when I stand up. So if anything, like people should be giving me seats, like
the priority seat.
But for the most part, it was okay. Though when you say that, one time I went to Segaland, like Segaland, whatever the hell they call that place in Odaiba. Like, so I went there, and then I was standing in line with one of my friends. He was like, I don't know, like 5'6", right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like I see like 3 people walk up to me. It's like, you, and then they're like, come here, and I was like, what's going on? And then it made me walk all the way up to the ride, sit down, put down, the safety thing, just to check that I'd fit, right? And then they're like, oh, okay. And then they let me go back to stand in the line. And I was like, yo, that was a kind of surreal experience. Like, what? Like, what? It's just all of these kind of little things, because I stand out anywhere I go, and I have like specific difficulties in any country I'll be in. In Europe and the UK, it's a bit better, but in Japan, it's just these kind of little things which kind of, build up to be like probably a problem after a while. Like in every store I go to, the little like not leaflets, but banners which are kind of sticking down.
Yeah.
I hit my head all the time, man.
Oh man.
All the time.
What did you think of like the Japanese portion size? Because I'm sure at 6'9" you probably eat a lot more than the average Japanese person.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of eating, like, I'm okay when it comes to that. I don't eat too much, but in general, yeah, Japanese portion sizes, they're not big. They're not big. They're not big. They're not big. Yeah, it's so crazy. Can I think of an example? Okay, I think I went to what's that burger chain? I went to Loretta.
Oh,
What's that? What's that? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The one which starts with an L.
L.
It starts with an L.
I'm sure we'll think of it.
Royal host.
Oh my god, Royal host, man.
Yeah, but all I'm gonna say is that I got like a burger and chips there, and then I was just like, what's going on here? Like, it felt like it was literally the size of like my palm, like, if not smaller. Like, there's nothing much going on there, not that much chips, and I was just there like, we done. After every meal, I was just thinking, you know, where's the next meal, sort of thing, because portion. Yeah. Also, like, at that time, I didn't really like ramen broth so much, so I didn't, slurp all of that broth
the
afterwards.
Naruto move.
So when I ate the ramen, I was just like, I need more noodles, man. I need more noodles. It wasn't enough. Like, do you get that feel, or is ramen enough for you guys? Without the broth.
You need more noodles for sure.
There's this one kind of ramen I used to eat a lot. It was called like a EAK ramen, and it would come with like a bowl of rice, and that I would be like super full every single time.
That would. Yeah, when you say that, it reminds me when I went to this place in freaking Odaiba again, and it was very cheap. It's like around 1,000 kind of yen. I got freaking a ramen. I got like gyoza. And I got like karaage, like I think it's like 4 gyoza and like 6 karaage, all for like 1,000 yen plus a freaking Fanta melon, man. Like, do you guys know about Fanta melon? Like, Fanta melon is crazy.
Yeah, oh man. Like, I'm not a big soda drinker, but I do like having an occasional Fanta melon. You know, it's the spot here and there. You know.
It really does. And coming back to what you're saying, Eric, with the rice, I had that one time with ramen as well, and it does really fill the spot.
Oh man, I mean, first of all, that's a bargain right there. Oh my god, it's like I feel like, yeah. I mean, I feel like the places, like, as you go outside of like the main areas in Tokyo, you get some really good bargains for food, and it always hits the spot. Now I'm really missing that right now. I kind of want to have some of that good stuff, the good cheap stuff, but save it for the next trip to Japan. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, another photo that you did send to us was a picture of where you're just like standing at the doorway and you're just a full like head above the doorway.
Yeah, that is crazy. Usually usually doorways, they come up to like just beneath like the top part of my forehead, but that was like I was a whole head taller than that door. Like, it was crazy. So imagine that, like, physically having to, like, kind of bend down, duck your head, do some, like, next kind of, double movement sort of thing, just to go in and out of that room. It was interesting. And also, for some reason, like, I slept on a bunk bed in that place, and the mattress was hard. And I was just like, what's going on? Like, maybe it's just that place. I'm not too sure if it's like a all Japan sort of thing, but that mattress was hard.
It's like a rock.
Yeah, like a rock. Yeah.
I think they tend to use hard mattresses in Japan. Because I was also sleeping on like a futon, which is like on the floor, and it was like super hard. So I guess they're like used to that.
Yeah, I did. I slept on a mattress, and it was pretty hard, like relative to like anything you would get, I guess, around the world, especially like just for a mattress standard.
So I guess it's kind of like that because I don't know, maybe if Japanese people are used to sleeping on futons, then going on to like a harder mattress is kind of what they used to, maybe. But I guess futons are kind of cool because you can just wrap them up and you have all that space.
True.
I heard it's better for your back, but I'm not sure if that's true. It doesn't really feel better.
And you're like, I don't know about that one.
I need some extra long futon if that's the case.
Oh yeah, the futon's definitely not built for you. That's for sure. Oh man,
You do like two of them.
Put them together. That's what people ask me sometimes. They're like, "Man, you're so tall. How the hell do you sleep in the bed?" And I'm like, I don't need a king size or double bed or anything. I can still sleep on a single bed. It just means I kind of have to curl up a little bit, or my my feet just kind of stick off the side. One of the two.
Right. So I guess like you had like a good amount of experiences in Japan, and I mean, of course, you had some tall experiences as well too. But I guess like,
should I talk about that one experience I told you previously?
Oh yeah. Why not? Let's talk about it. We'll give everyone a little taste.
So imagine this: I'm in Shinjuku. We're just about to finish up our trip, and it's nighttime. We just want to go to freaking 7-Eleven and just wrap up the day, get some Fanta melons, some Pringles, like just some snacks to kind of just make the night go by. And then one guy sees me. Like he must be at least 180 centimeters. So he's tall, right? He sees me and then he's shocked. And then he just says, "Big boy!" And then I was like, "Boy." I just felt embarrassed. It's just like, what? Like, everyone's looking at me like, and he's just like, how tall? How tall? And I was like, 207 cm. And then they're like, oh, good. And just like, a basketball? And I was just there like, no. Oh, okay. And then that was, and then I was like, what's the point? And it was the same situation I talked about previously. Speaking Japanese, they respond in English. It's like, you know what? Like, screw it.
For real. Oh, man. Yeah, talk about a random encounter, dude. About as close as a random encounter in an RPG as you're going to get in real life.
Yeah, man. Some crazy stuff happens just by being tall, man.
Yeah. Oh man, but yeah, I guess kind of given all the experiences you've had so far in Japan, a lot of funny ones for sure.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans of going back there again? So of course, when the pandemic is a lot better, but
when the pandemic is over, definitely I want to go there. Like maybe for another trip or maybe for slightly longer. I don't know, but I just feel like over the last couple of years, just grinding, right? Things going well, things not so well. I just discovered that having a vague goal and just making it out as you're going along is one of the best things you can do, because you can just have kind of tapered expectations as opposed to putting everything all in one basket. So, like, yeah, I want to see how everything comes together. And I just think by being dedicated and getting into something like Japanese is one of the best things I've done, because learning a language teaches you how to learn. They don't teach you that like in school, in uni or whatever. They just give you things and expect you to pass. So bringing that skill and then putting it into other moments of my life, I look forward to that, and I look forward to see how it all goes, whether I'm going to be successful or not. Hopefully just happy.
Happiness is key at the end of the day. Oh man. And I guess, yeah. I mean, of course, you've mentioned how this vague goal, especially with Japanese, has been making you feel happy, with even though it's a lot of ups and downs. But trust. I mean, yeah, and I mean, Molly, you of all people know how many Japanese learners are listening to this podcast. So we were wondering if you could hit some people up over here with some advice that you have, because especially with the whole idea of motivation, because I feel like, again, that's something that doesn't get talked about enough when you're really learning a language, right? So what do you have to impart to Korekara?
To the Korekara listeners, if you're learning and you're just beginning, right, it's gonna suck. You're gonna struggle. And it's going to feel like you're not going to make any progress. You're not making any kind of progress. Stick at it and it'll eventually get better, bit by bit. I don't care if you do 10 minutes a day, as long as you're doing something every day, because that little bit of time every day can build into a habit, and that habit can extend. Just always push yourself. So many people are like that. Like, they start learning, right? And then they watch all the videos and all the content, and then they're getting into arguments on the best way to learn, as opposed to actually just diving in, right?
Right.
We need more people who dive in, as opposed to talk about, what's the best, and argue about what's the best and what's not the best. Because in the end of the day, it's a personal journey, and just know that it's not going to be a walk in the park, and it's okay.
You love to hear it. And speaking about diving in, let's dive into where we can find you, Molly. Where can the good people at Korekara find you, man? I mean, you got some AMVs, which we'll link in the description. You got the YouTube. Where else can we find you, man?
I got everything, man. Like, so you can find me on Twitter at Mobile Mally. You can find me on YouTube at Mobile Mally as well. You can find me on YouTube again with my AMVs on Mouse to Free, right? And I think that's it, really. I mean, and on the Korekara podcast, Discord, of course.
The Korekara podcast, you're right.
Yeah, man. I also share memes on the Facebook page, but I'm not going to advertise that, but you might find me if you find me.
True. Guys, make sure to find Molly. I mean, I've looked at some of your YouTube videos, and they're very interesting. Everyone should go check those out. I haven't checked out the AMVs yet, though, so I will go do that after this. So hope everyone joins me with that. That'll be real fun. But Molly, as you know, the last part of every Korekara podcast is the message to the Korekara listeners, the message that could be pretty much anything. So what are you going to say to the Korekara listeners today?
Yeah, even though there's a lot of trolls in the community, and then they troll you for, not going, intense or hard, in the end of the day, we all have to get good.
Get good?
We'll have to get good one way.
Just like them light novels, right?
Just like the light novels. You remember that? Oh, bro.
Well, on that note, we'll catch you on the next one, guys. It was an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today, Molly. It was a fun time, man. We'll catch you guys later. Peace. Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the podcast. Make sure you guys show Molly some love on his platforms, and also we hope to catch you guys in the Discord sometime as well. And as always, you already know we will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.